Okay, here we are. This is going to follow on from the earlier video where I showed you how to physically set up the MultiCam operation. This is how to put it together in Premiere Pro. You can see here that I've downloaded my 2 bits of footage. I'll scrub through this so the voiceover doesn't interfere with my mic. We've got camera 1 and we've got camera 2. So basically we've got 2 cameras set up, different angles, filming Alan as he talks about how much he enjoys doing moving image. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to hit Command and click on camera 1 and 2, so we've got them both selected. I'm going to right click, come down here, create multi-camera source sequence, and let's call it Alan 2 because I've made one already. And you see here that I've got audio track channel to use for my synchronization. So what it's going to do is it's going to look at both audio tracks, find similarities, find an audio spike and put them together and sync them for us. And it's going to give us the good audio and leave the bad audio behind, in very simple terms. It's about as much as you need to know. So this takes a little while. We'll let it carry on. I might edit this bit out. Excuse me. This is slightly longer than I need it to be. When I started speaking with Alan, we didn't rehearse this at all, and we talked for about 10 minutes about how he does moving image, how much he enjoys it, what he finds difficult about it. I might put the full interview at the end of this clip. Anyway, here we go. So it's done it. You can now see that I have another folder called Process Clips, where if I open that up, it's put the 2 bits of footage that we had into a separate folder, and we now have something here called a sequence clip. So if I pull this over onto my timeline, you can see that it's all green. Now I'm going to reduce this a wee bit because I don't need all this, and it'll take forever to demonstrate it, and I don't need to do that. So I'm just going to pull a wee bit in from the beginning and pull a bit in from the end because I don't need this much to demo this, and I'll pull it over. So now you'll see that if I play this, it's only going to have 1 camera on it for the moment. What I've got to do is I've got to come down here and toggle my multi-camera view. Now this is this little icon here, I hope you can see that. If you don't have that in this bar, we can add it by going to the button editor, pressing it, finding it and dragging it down into that space. I don't need to do that because I have it here. But if you don't see that little icon, then you need to use the button editor, find it, drag it into your toolbar, and it will sit there. So if I click on this, you can now see that I've got, in my program window, I've got the live view and I've got the both camera views. So if I start to play this, actually what I'll do before I start that is I'm just going to take the volume down on this so it doesn't interfere with my mic. So you might just be able to hear it, maybe not, but I'll play it back with the volume at the correct levels. So if I start playing this now, I can click at any time and I can make any of these cameras live. At the moment it's starting on camera 1, it's got the yellow bounding box around it. If I click on camera 2, the yellow bounding box will go around that, and that will be the live camera. So I can use my mouse to click, or I can simply hit 1 or 2 on my keyboard and it'll toggle between cameras. We'll start off with camera 1. So if I start playing this, and I'm then going to cut to camera 2, and then I'm going to cut back to camera 1. Really you want to be listening to the audio here because you want to be listening to your audio cues, and that will give you an idea of maybe when you want to put your cuts in. But anyway, I'll go back to 2, I'll do this in a quite arbitrary way. But back to 1. I've probably still got too much footage here. Back to 2. And so on and so forth. And I'll do a couple more, and then we'll just use this part of the sequence. Back to 1. Back to 2. Okay, I'll just stop that there. Now, I'll increase the size so we can see. Now you can see here that it's put our cuts in for us. So if I start to play this now, it will play with our cuts in it. Yeah. So now, if I want to change this, maybe I'm not quite so happy where a cut was. I can simply go in and I can tweak this, pull that back a little bit, match this up with it. So we can go in and re-edit. And if at any time whilst it's playing, if I decide that I'm holding this camera too long, I think this is how it works, I hope it is. If I hit 1 there, it'll put another cut in there. So anyway, we can go in, we can re-edit. Yes, it has done that. So if I go back and play that again, cut to 2, do a new cut to 1, so on and so forth. So I'll just bring this down size again so we can see what's going on. Now obviously what I would do, it's quite boring for you to watch me doing this all the time. I'll do the rest of this and I'll add it to the video and I'll pause for the moment. So here's a little bit of the interview with the volume raised up.
Well, you're doing it, which is incredibly annoying because you can't really, I don't think. I always say either book me for the moving image or book me for the stills. It's really difficult to do both. You can't, well I can't do it, because you end up doing both badly.
Yes.
Or not as good as you
Averagely.
should do.
Yes,
Yeah, because
yes.
you can't spend, there's a lot of time spent on moving image.
Yeah.
You can't just pick the camera up and go, right, I'm going to do a moving image section now, because there's all the, especially if there's sound involved as well. It just becomes very complicated. And if you muck the sound up, you've mucked the whole thing up.
So there you go. That's how you put together a multi-sequence in Premiere Pro. It's really quite straightforward. There's nothing to be scared of. And hopefully you might want to try this when you get around to shooting your own pieces. Okay, I'll add the complete interview here. It's about 10 minutes long. Alan, we didn't rehearse this. Alan speaks a lot of sense, and it's all the things I've been trying to get you to understand. So it's here if you want to listen to it. Tell me about your own progress in moving image.
Well, I've been doing it for, let me think how long, well, since as soon as these cameras could do video, you're getting asked by clients. And it's usually this incredibly annoying thing where you're booked for the stills. Oh, could you maybe just do a wee bit of moving image while you're doing it? Which is incredibly annoying because you can't really, I don't think. I always say either book me for the moving image or book me for the stills. It's really difficult to do both. You can't, well I can't do it, because you end up doing both badly.
Yes.
Or not as good as
Averagely.
you should do.
Yes,
Yeah, because you can't spend, there's a lot of time spent on moving image.
Yeah.
You can't just pick the camera up and go, right, I'm going to do a moving image section now, because there's all the, especially if there's sound involved as well. It just becomes very complicated. And if you muck the sound up, you've mucked the whole thing up. So that's kind of where it began. It's not, it's maybe 20%, 15-20% of my business is maybe doing still image segments or standalone videos or even just vox pops. But also you kind of, I've worked with journalists who actually do documentary type things. So I'll be essentially the moving image section of it, which is great because it means I don't need to think about any of the kind of creative side of what the interviews are going to be, where it has to be. I'm allowed to just go and worry about how am I going to do this technically. What's the location like? Is there a noisy stream in the background or a road? Which even with the kind of directional mics, you've got to be really careful of that kind of external noise. Because if you're needing to ever put the vocals up or down in the edit, and you've got, I did one when I was halfway up a mountain, there was this, I, for some reason, interviewed the guy next to this stream that was in kind of early spring, and it was incredibly noisy. And I couldn't really do anything with it, because I had to put music over it, so whenever I tried to lift the levels of the audio up, you just got this incredibly annoying stream. And you can filter it out to an extent, but it affects the tonal quality of the vocals as well. Indeed.
And in terms of what you already knew about stills, what did you think you had to learn to enable you to do moving image?
I think it's the technical stuff. The framing of it and the composition, I think that's kind of there. You're always working in landscape, so there's a slight change, but then I think I look at most of my still photos, I usually shoot landscape anyway. It seems to be the default that I do, so that wasn't a massive thing, but very much the audio. Just coming to the grips with, it took me a while to realise about frame rates and the effect that had on your shutter speed, that, you double it. I wasn't really aware of that. I didn't really know what it meant, because I was totally self-taught, which is okay to an extent, but you kind of realise how much you don't know when you start doing it. And you can wing it and you can get away with it, but there is things you think it's difficult in the edit because you're playing about with things and you don't know what you're doing. And then you come to edit it together and you think, why is that different? And it's because of the technical stuff. So that I found interesting, but I enjoy it because it's hard. I think with stills, and you know what it's like, when you've been doing it for years, you can often turn up and you think, I know what I'm doing. I will get what I need to do. Whereas with video, I've got to really, really think about it, and I've got to really plan it. And when I do pull it off, I feel absolutely delighted with myself. Because it's hard, especially if you're doing the whole thing by yourself, which often with the budgets you are. And you're juggling audio, you're juggling video, if you're interviewing people, you've also got that element of, are you having to come up with the questions?
Coming up with questions.
I know, but it's all of that, and lighting as well. Because, you look at any TV thing, everything's lit. External, it's all lit. Whereas you may or may not be able to do that on location if you're doing it for yourself, but try.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things to try and get the students to understand is that we're no longer working with raw files and non-destructive processes, and we can't do things in retrospect. We need to plan. What picture style am I using? What white balance have I got? What colour temperature are my lights? And if you don't take care of all those things, then you've got an editing nightmare.
And it's almost like the first time you edit with a lot of footage, that's when you think, I should have done that, shouldn't I? But you don't want to, ideally you want to be ready the first time you edit with, you're not needing bucket loads of footage if it's the right footage that you've planned for. I can't stress how important it is, the planning, the storyboarding. It just makes it so much easier because the edit's hard and the edit makes or breaks it. It really does. So if you've got the required footage, the editing, it can be the best thing in the world. When you're relaxed, you think, I've got everything I need. Now I can actually be really creative with it. And when you put an edit together that works, it's just great.
And once you've shot to your brief, understanding the storyboard, then you can maybe think, well,
of course you can.
Let's do some B-roll. Let's try some different things.
And like anything, a still shoot, you turn up, you know what you need to get, but you turn up at the location, you think, that's amazing, that'll be brilliant, I'll do something with that after you've got what you need. That's when you then go off a little bit and do the kind of creative stuff that it's over and above your planning, because things happen on the day that you think, oh, that's great. Just the light might be different from a recce that you did. but get your stuff, get your kind of belt and braces stuff, and then.
As I sometimes say to the students, if you want to do your shit, know your shit.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And just be, and there's lots of variables. It's harder than stills because there's more moving elements, I suppose, like the lighting and the audio, and sometimes something doesn't work, and you've got to be on the ball. You've got to remember to have the microphone on. You've got to remember to press record, and it's harder than a stills because the actual pressing of the record button is a smaller event in the actual recording process than a stills thing, which is very audible, very clear in the pressing of the shutter, which is different. So you've got to remember all of this, and especially if you're using people mic'd up, is your radio mics working? Are your batteries up to date? And is it still going? And what's the sound levels? So I usually use headphones just to check that my audio is okay, which then means you're tethered to the camera a lot of the time, or your remote device, which means you've got cables. I'm constantly strangling myself because I've got cables wrapped around my neck to keep them out of the way, and things in pockets. So I love it. I really, really enjoy it because it's hard. I think that's why I like it so much. And you can't do it unless you've really thought about it before.
Yeah, exactly. Like all things that are really difficult, if you plan, you take care of stuff, then that hard thing becomes easier.
Yeah, completely. And it's the same with stills. You still, you plan even, to an extent if it's, at least if you're planning it in your head, you're never just turning up blind, ever. So you take it up several levels with audiovisual because you have to. And it's all to do with the edit. And as soon as you sit down with the wrong footage or not enough footage, you realise why planning is just incredibly important. So the whole process is it's in the same kind of universe, the same galaxy as stills, but you're in different solar systems. So a lot of the scales overlap. You've got scales over and above it for stills and over and above it for moving image. Creatively, the shots I always find look after themselves because that's what you do as a photographer. You're doing that anyway. You've got to be careful of your exposure because you've got less you can really only adjust it with apertures. You can change your ISO a bit, but I'm old school and I don't like doing that, and I still like to keep it low. So you might need to have ND filters with you as well, because you can't really adjust your shutter speed to compensate. You're kind of limited to apertures. So there's more. I've got a separate bag over and above my camera stuff with all my video stuff in it. My eyesight's not very good, so just checking focus. I've got an external screen.
I've got a loop as well.
Yeah, and the loops are great. Yeah, just because it's so difficult to check the focus. But again, for your planning for the shot, I'm wary of people coming forwards or backwards because I know the focus is going to go. I always try to keep it kind of left to right or not moving.
Yes, understanding depth of field, measuring depth of field. All these things. Alan, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
It was very helpful, and I'm sure the HN2s will be delighted to watch this.
Very much so.